Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a Friday the 13th edition of a Friday update. I mean, look, what could go wrong on Friday the 13th, right? Remember this thing? This wonderfully sharp and dangerous thing? I mean, what could possibly go wrong during this update? So, you folks can hear me?
Yes, they already confirmed.
Awesome. All right, so, you know, why don't we get started? Because after all, it's Friday the 13th, and, you know, internet could go down, North Korea could launch. I mean, you know, anything could happen today.
Oh, those are on the same order of magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, hey, we're on the East Coast. Take them a few more months before they can get rid of us, too. Anyway, so let's start with the top 10-ish. First, we humbly apologize for the longest nature of this week's top 10-ish list. We do hope you forgive our recent trends of additional productiveness and glory. So, having said that, there are 19, I think, items.
And 8 sub-items.
And 8 sub-items. So, yeah, like, lots of stuff to talk about. So, first and foremost, weekend testing. So, yes, we will be running a test on both Saturday and Sunday this weekend. 2-hour time slot, two 2-hour time slots. And expect an email about it. It will be an alpha, beta 1, and IT test. It will be in the new scenario that we've been building. The new scenario is not finished. And just as a reminder to certain people, like all of you, hey, you know, it's still a work in progress. But what it is quite different from what you've seen before, unless you were in today. But we get two time slots, scenario testing. So far, so good. Number 2, work in progress, crafting. So I've been a bit busy doing lots and lots of other things, but I did manage to get some time in to work on taking. So my taking calculator is now actually been turned into code by me, not our game code. They still don't want me to touch the game code, and who can blame them? But I turned it into C, and so I'm using it to really test out the formulas and then run some simulations on things. But yeah, it's all looking good, and the team has it. So lots of laughter was heard from Seattle at some point today. Probably coincidental. I doubt it. Number 3, tech, improved build times. So this is something that's not at all exciting to most of you folks, but it's actually really, really, really important to us. The time it takes to build our game had increased over the months to the point where it was taking us almost 40 minutes to make a build. And the problem is when we are trying to add, you know, if Mike is adding some VFX, if Tyler is adding some environmental art, and everything takes so long to build, it slows down our productivity. We made a slight change to those 40 minutes. It's down from 40 minutes to just under 1 minute. So that's a lot better. As to that masked man who swooped in and did this, not telling yet. Number 4, post office. So the post office has landed. This was 4 weeks worth of work, and will allow us to do much more complicated gameplay mechanics in the new scenario map. I've told the programmers, since they call it the post office during the summer, I expect them to come in the correct postal uniforms. So far, no response from that. Number 5, Scenario 2 performance improvements. Well, that was something that I've been talking about for weeks. It is something that you know, was a problem for us. You folks had seen much better performance months ago, and things have been going downhill. We're not going downhill anymore. Going back uphill. More stuff coming in, but we've been able to get some time to focus on it. All part of what we need to do to get ready for Beta 1. But if you were in today's test or you'll be in the weekend test, we are much better. Now, just something to keep in mind. Most of you wouldn't have even noticed a big difference between the 300 a week ago and the 300 6 weeks ago. Part of our job is obviously to keep stressing it by running special tests on our servers, and that's where we're seeing the biggest leap in time. Plus, we were also seeing issues like disappearing trees and other problems, which we have fixed some of them. Number 6, work in progress. Bane and Boone, the traits. So Ben and Rob have continued to fix, add, and test traits. Rob fixed a bug, which allows Ben to begin actually making traits to use the player's secondary stats. And we can also run, and we can also now use those traits for admin testing. So what does that mean? It means traits, use of secondary. Okay, use of secondary stats. Should know that off the top of my head. Is coming and coming quickly. Number 7, tech. Player migration during server shutdown. That just means that when we have to shut down a server, or a server decides it needs to shut down, more graceful exit. Colin has managed to work on it while being a new dad. Amazing. Actually, very amazing. I remember what it was like the first week after Michael was born. I wouldn't have been able to code anything. Number 8, work in progress. Another tech item, building placed objects. So this week, Matt finished another pass on item placement mode, limiting what transformations are allowed based on gameplay data. So obviously, one of the things that happened during our alpha testing was that the stairway of arrows and other things, as well as objects that weren't placed properly, this is all part of an effort that's going on now, at least when we want to prevent it, to prevent people from building staircases to the sky made out of arrows. And, of course, placing things properly. Building placed objects and scripting for Vox crafting effects is number 9. So this is all part of getting more game stuff in, getting the ability to place the Vox in the world and use it in the world and leave it, and the Vox will run while you're gone. So that's all part of it, and of course making it look good at the same time. Number 10 is another tech item, updated item tooltips and trade UI. So AJ is finishing up the feedback on finishing up on the work based on the feedback from his completed item tooltips work in the player inventory UI. So he's hoping to get that pushed either today or the beginning of next week. So certainly by next week, you will absolutely see that in the game. Trade UI is coming after that. Number 11, another tech item, server management and bot testing. So Tim has been working on that a lot over the last couple weeks. The reasons why, of course, is to make it even easier for us to run tests on the weekends and during the week without having to always have engineers here. The ability to make it so easy that even a CEO could spin up the servers and spin up the bots and do all that, everything that we need to do. Kind of helpful. Plus, it saves them time when they have to do that. Number 12, work in progress item, environmental art scenario 2. So there's a lot of stuff in this one, which we'll leave for the update because we've still got 7 more items to go. But Dion and Tyler have been adding work into the map. Lots of new things. You'll see them. You'll see some of them certainly when you go in to the test this weekend, and you'll see more coming next week as well. Number 13, crafting. Christina has been getting some serious updates. Now, what's a serious update about crafting? I mean, let's face it. You know, you have happy updates. You have serious updates. Oh, yes, that's bad. Well, I guess that would be serious.
I advocate for more silly updates.
Well, silly updates would be great. I mean, you know, again, Stairway to Heaven with stars, with arrows, was pretty good. But she's been working away, as per the other item, on the Vox, and unfortunately, she's one of those people who has to look at my code, so I apologize in advance. Number 14, another work in progress, animation improvements. So we've been making improvements. It says taking here, I think means making, with the new ability animations and updating the existing weapon sets, including the basic attacks.
I think it means taking lessons learned.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant. Or making improvements based on the new, well, whatever. So, yeah, a bunch of new stuff. The bottom line is we're making the animations look better and better. Certainly we've gotten a lot of feedback from you folks. And even though we were telling you right from the beginning that they were just placeholder animations, they weren't our finished animations, you'll see continued updates from now through game launch. Number 15, Art, Characters 2.0. So John finished off the improvements to the existing armor assets this week with the completion of the Fall Court armor for the TDD. These will be used right now in the character creation renders, and then during Beta 1 they will make their way into the game. So sorry, actually we're using them now. You guys can't use them right now. Number 16, new realm-specific VFX concepting. So, as you folks know, Mike and Michelle have been working on VFX. Michelle does some of the concepting art for Mike, and that just continues. We need, and you expect, our VFX to be up to the standard that we certainly Mike set. With a couple of games that you guys know so very well. So this is, you know, a nice step along the way. Number 17, another item from Michelle, Scenario 2 gameplay assets. Michelle's, using Michelle's proof concepts, John completed the Place of Power center crystal base, the secondary crystal receptacles, and the crystal itself for capturing. So closer and closer to having Scenario 2 actually being viable in an almost finished way. Number 18, another odd item, realm-specific VFX update. So Mike began work on the improvements this week, working first with the Mjolnir's new ability. So we've had a bit of testing and fine-tuning. Fortunately, we've got a long way to go to launch, and even with 3 months to go before beta, and I'll talk about that in a second, we're moving along quite nicely with visual items, not just tech items. So number 19, and the final one, good, because I'm ready for a break, interactive combat music. So DB spent part of this week working on the system using previously created music. The long-term goal is a system that dynamically changes in mixing music, not only because it's cool, but because it informs players about what is going on in combat around them. So that's it for the 19. One other thing I'll say, which is, of course, our progress to Beta 1. We talked about it this morning. We're right on track. So, yay. Of course, as always, something can still go wrong, but so far so good. Andrew is close to finishing off. He's got a quote that we're going to put up at some point about exactly what he was doing this morning with blocks, but we are almost past that last bit that we really wanted to get in before Beta 1 in terms of technical challenges. So that's it. Needs to be another shorty again today, but we can go to 4:30, maybe a little bit longer. So give me a second to drink some coffee, and then you can ask some questions. And as you can tell by my voice, yeah, this was another week where I was on the phone or talking to people at least half my week. So I am actually looking forward to the weekend where I'm going to try not to talk a lot so I can actually rest my poor abused voice.
Alrighty, the questions are coming in. Fubuwoo passes along a question from Angelus Mortis on Twitch. I'm curious, will there be an all-night test during Beta 1 for Australians?
Oh my God, absolutely. Look, we know that a lot of you come from all over the world, whether it's I know a few people actually from our Australian contingent, some in New Zealand, we've got some in Russia, we've got some in Asia, and we know that the blocks that we're running now in Alpha, especially the weekend ones, aren't great for you, aren't great for them. During Beta, we will definitely be running them longer at times, and trying to do them on the weekend, particularly Saturdays rather than Sundays, of course, because if you're a day ahead of us, then a Sunday, afternoon test doesn't do you folks a lot of good. But yes, absolutely, I promise that we will be doing that.
Olvik passes along a question for Rhaegar. Will a full group of melee stealthers trying to engage a full group of non-stealthers suffer the same artificial penalties they would suffer if they were trying to gank a single target, assuming that there is no prior battle going on?
Well, there's always, look, whether you are going after one target, whether you're trying to move through the world, I've been very clear right from the beginning that stealth gank groups, especially large numbers within the gank group, are going to suffer a penalty within the Veil. Is it artificial? Sure, but it's no more artificial than timers on stealth or other things people do to make stealth less viable. So, will there be penalties? Absolutely. And it won't matter whether you're going after one or a lot. The more stealthers that are in the Veil together, especially when they're very close to each other or close to each other, there'll be penalties within there. There have to be. Now, we also want to do things with stealth, so as you guys know, to make it very viable in other parts of the game as well as that part of the game, and not make it painful. So there will be a trade-off. Will you have to be more careful in this system than maybe others? Sure, but we also want to avoid some of the more pain-in-the-butt things that you can do to make the stealthing and stealthers less viable and less fun.
Sacrix asks, will we see skills such as nearsight used in CU on some classes?
Tentatively, if we're thinking of the same skill, yes.
All right. Lotaween has a question that maybe you will understand. Lotaween asks, if you went on vacation and both offices of the studio were visited by Jason Voorhees with everyone else at work, and knowing that the sympathy factor would make it impossible for anyone to say no to you, who in the industry would you ask to join you to finish CU, and why?
All right, well, that certainly absolutely wins today as the one of the most original questions that has ever been asked.
Challenge met.
Okay,
I guess.
so read the whole thing again.
Okay. Ladawin asks, if you went on vacation and both offices of the studio were visited by Jason Voorhees with everyone else at work, and knowing that the sympathy factor would make it impossible for anyone to say no to you, who in the industry would you ask to join you to finish CU, and why?
Blizzard, actually, would be my choice. And why Blizzard? For all, the grief they get about some things, There's a lot of talented people over there. They care, very deeply about putting out a great product. And so if I had to go to a team to finish it, then yeah, it would probably be Blizzard. Probably would be Blizzard. On the other hand, if I want to put lockboxes in it, I know who to go to.
All right. Dark Society Network asks, will every single block in a castle's wall have its own quality and durability?
That's one of the things that we've been working on is the whole what is a building, right? And it's what Andrew is essentially what he's working on. Making buildings work obviously is a challenge. It's why no other game in the industry is doing it like we are. Right now, what you have said is the plan. We want each block to have its own information, whether it's the health, whether the material that's being used, strength, stability, all of that. Is there a possibility that if in order to get the best performance out of the engine, instead of each block having that information, it was multiple blocks, so it was more like templates or larger pieces, we would do that as well. Certainly we're not at that point yet, which is why I'm being very careful with this answer. Do we think we can do it on a block-by-block basis? Yes, because we've done it already. Can we make it performant enough so that in very large-scale battles with lots and lots of people beating on the same building that it'll work? We think we can, but as I've said for a while, that's the last big technical challenge for us. We've just solved the other ones.
Andrew Cortesia says, the answer is most likely a yes, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you going to reuse the new and improved art assets, e.g. for Scenario 2?
Oh yeah, look, and yes, you knew the answer already. Yes, we want to keep improving that scenario, all the scenarios, just as we're improving the animations for the game. What you see now is our first pass. It is nowhere near a final first. It is just the first pass. It will get better leading up to beta, and then we expect it to get better during beta and afterwards. Even though the scenarios will not play a great role going forward, we want to reuse a lot of the stuff that we're putting in there for other places of power. There was a comment on the forums from someone who was like, well, we're not really testing the gameplay of CU. Well, we are in the scenarios. Not testing all of it, we're testing a part of it. There will be places of power. There will be things that have to be, captured. We've been very clear about that. So even if what we're doing in the initial scenarios isn't exactly the same as what you'll be doing once the game goes live, it allows us to test a lot of things that we need to test before Beta 1, let alone before we go live.
Svarti asks, with spells being so customizable, will we see any interconnectedness between spells, where casting one might affect some other spell you have, with combos, procs, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the goal. That was an easy one. Thank you.
Odelvik says, Ancient would like to know, the original design called for the Hellbound to have a hand-to-hand, unarmed option. Is that still a thing? And if not, what are the chances of it making a comeback?
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
Piranha7 asks, when do you think the actual crafter class will go in? Halfway through Beta 1?
Certainly. Our goal is to get the crafters in once we are pretty confident that we've nailed the first few levels of crafting. And I don't mean nailed in terms of final, but means that it's actually working. Right now, we want as many people as possible to be able to test, and we also don't want to spend any additional resources on the class until we've got that in. And I don't think it's going to be, quite frankly, all that difficult to do what we need to do from a design sense to make the beta 1 crafting fun and not a total pain in the ass for you folks.
5-minute warning?
Yes, please.
5-minute warning, folks. Carlitos Way Elite asks, when can we expect to see the information promised, such as announcements and beta documents?
As we get closer to beta, 30 days out most likely. I don't want to take any of my time or anyone else's time preparing them until we're absolutely on track. And even then, as long as it doesn't interfere with getting ready for beta 1. Once we get to that point, my role in the design will be less, so I think I will have the time to get my stuff done, but I just want to be 100% sure that nothing that I do distracts from beta. That's something I say in all the stand-ups. I say that even when I'm talking about my things. Nothing, should distract us before beta 1. We can't afford the time, and even for things that I think I would like to have for beta 1, if I haven't put them on the sheet, I won't, prior to when we started this, I won't ask the programmers, or Ben to do it. I just won't. I'll wait till beta.
Zanzu asks, are there any plans to put in improved ally visibility, parenthesis healer-specific UI, for beta 1?
Not for the beginning of beta 1. You never know, but that's one of the items we did not promise for beta 1. So, yeah, it's really that simple.
Dark Society Network asks, can accomplished and trusted crafters advertise with some sort of rating? Something like 721 satisfied customers so far.
Yeah, we want to do something like that. We think that, while I'm not a huge fan of too much connectivity, especially, the whole, hey, let's hook up Facebook and everything else to our friends lists and all of that, and take it to the next level. There is some things that we can do that seem more modern-ish that make sense. Things like that, things where players can endorse other players, is something I'd like to have, because I think it is helpful, especially in a game where we don't have an auction house. How far we'll go with that, I honestly don't know.
And now this might be a nice one to end on. Doulos OG asks, what of this crafting you are finally getting some time to focus on has you excited this week?
Yeah, that's a good one. So for me, this week, when I was not talking to people, as I had to spend most of the week talking, and all good stuff, nothing bad, which is nice. As I was working on my crafting calculator and the crafting code, I think I've set it up in a really easy way for us to mod and change during tests, and for Ben and I, and anyone else who wants to chime in, to look at the formulas, to look at the numbers, to tweak things. I like that. I like the idea of very being able to iterate very quickly, being able to make the kind of changes from a design standpoint that are so necessary to do during beta. I mean, a good example, is taking the time it takes to level up a skill. In crafting, being able to tweak that in such a way to get a reasonably fine amount of granularity is important. And with the values and the way I've laid things out so far, I can get that kind of granularity already. So I like that. And I'm excited by that, because it will make my life easier, it'll make Ben's life easier, and it'll make your guys' life better when we need to tweak things on the fly for testing. And again, I think that is so important. We want to be respectful of your guys' times. We've said this before. We don't want to artificially, I should say artificially, because it's a game, everything is artificial. But we don't want to set things up so that you guys and gals are spending way too much time doing things when you really don't have that much time to spend necessarily on helping us. I want to make it so that, hey, if you can come in and help us for a half hour or an hour, that can be very useful to us. So I like where I'm at so far with taking. The numbers are not there in terms of, yes, this is what I think they should be for the game, at launch. But those are so easy to tweak right now that it makes me very happy, because I know we're going to get this right. Will this be the greatest crafting system ever? I hope it's a great one. Certainly we're going to be putting the time and the effort into it. I think it's going to be one that's going to be very rewarding for our crafters. It's one that we certainly would not, nobody would be able to accuse us of not putting a lot of effort into. And way more than, for example, we were able to put on Warhammer, which is no fault at all of the team that executed on that. Far from it. The guys who worked, underneath me and underneath the other management at EA and at Mythic, the team, they're not to blame. So we are putting in much more in terms of resources and time, and frankly on my end, than I was able to put in back then, and so that makes me excited. Plus, I've got Ben here and other people here who have no hesitation to look at what I'm doing and let me know if they think it's really dumb. So that gives me a lot of confidence. And plus, like I said, I've been playing around with the numbers so much, and it's just so easy to get that kind of, again, granularity that I want for beta and then for live. That has me excited. So I think that's it, and we have no packages today.
No.
So no packages, just a big ass weapon that so far hasn't, come and chopped off any part of me.
Rhaegar PM'd me and said, "Go chop some wood up with that thing."
Yeah. So so far so good for Friday the 13th. So again, folks, the TLDR. Right now, the plan is two 2-hour tests this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We will be running Scenario 2 testing. If you are an Alpha, Beta 1, or IT person, and you haven't looked at the email I sent you earlier about being in today's test, take a look at it. Find the time to read the document. There's a lot of stuff there. That's number one. Number two, we still have a test ongoing. So if you want to jump in now, please do. We want to vet this version before we leave today, so we can guarantee that it's going to be available for testing on Saturday. Third, lots of progress. Yay. Top 10-ish, 19 items. So having said all that, and as always, and hopefully not forever, because forever would mean we're still working on the game, but for as long as we are working on the game until we get to live, we thank you for your patience. We thank you for your support. And I hope all of you have a really good weekend. As you can see, the Hawaiian shirt made its first appearance this year because it's like 80 degrees outside. And really nice. And it's going to be really nice tomorrow. And then it's going to get cold again. So, this weather is about as screwed up as our government is right now. So that's really fitting. So with that, and again, as always, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you all for your support. And I will definitely see you this weekend in at least one of the tests. So have a great weekend, y'all. See you later.
Keep an eye out for the emails.